Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Why Read series. We are at episode 43, and I'm joined here today with two incredible women that I greatly respect and I'm honored to be in the company of. I'm here with Ashley from Library with Silversaint and Masha from a Mash of Books. And we also have a couple people in the chat. So, hello, good evening to you where you are, and good morning to Derry where you are. Yay! So excited to chat. And we always begin this discussion with the same question: why read? And again, this is pertaining to right now in your life with so many things competing for your attention, so many distractions. What compels you to pick up a book? And so I'm going to start this question. I'm going to ask you this to Ashley. Ashley, why read?
Firstly, I love when you said when you asked the question, when you said, right now, why do you read? Because I was thinking about this before starting this. I thought, I know what the question that I'm going to be asked. And I was trying to think, why do I read right now? And it has changed so much over the years, specifically in the last couple of years. And I think now, looking at my reading and the sort of books that I tend to lean towards, it really is less. It used to be more of just an entertainment thing for me, whereas I think now it's so much more of a way for me to explore themes and to ask questions and learn new things about myself and the world around me. And just I'm constantly looking to not change my own mind, but see if I can find a new way of looking at something. And I think with the books that I'm leaning towards nowadays, that's what I'm trying to look for. Whereas a few years ago, if I'd have answered that question, I probably would have just said, I just like reading for fun. I just want a fun adventure or something that's really fast paced. Whereas now I like reading to learn more about other people and just how other people see things. I love seeing the world through other people's eyes. So
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that answer to the question, Ashley. And just so you know, like I really liked the idea of making the question dynamic because for me, I think it's an important question for us to return to all the time. Like, why are we reading? Especially because even in our book lives, we're pulled in different directions. Read this, read that, and all the FOMO. And sometimes I think it's good to just pull in and be like, okay, what is resonating with me, or why am I pulled towards this? Is this an authentic pull to this book or whatever it is? And I like the question to be dynamic in that way too and pertain to right now, because then if I ever have you back in the future, if I have you two back in a different episode in the future, that answer might be different. It might be the same, but it might be different. And I love that. And I also think like that question, it can be answered differently for us at different times of our life. So like what you were saying, it sounds like you're refining that exploration for yourself, is what I'm gathering.
yeah, definitely. My reading has changed so much within just the space of a couple of years. And I look for things in books that I never would have looked at. And it's all because I've learned through learning about other people reading as well. So I guess a reason why I read now is to have that shared experience, because for me, reading always used to just be a personal thing. And that was something that I kept very private. Whereas now that I've met so many incredible booktubers and things like that, it's so much more of a shared experience. So I think that's sort of fed into it a little bit as well. But yeah, it's definitely changed. And I think I love the feeling of when I finish a book and I sort of think, I didn't realize that a book could do that. I didn't realize that a book could make me feel that or think in that way. And there are some experiences where I've read a book and I didn't realize that it could make me feel those emotions. So yeah, I think it's just that whole experience of me, as I say, viewing the world in different ways through different lenses and just constantly changing the way I think. I love that. It's like you can go through a complete evolutions in your own mind when you read different books. So yeah, sorry. Probably
no.
answer.
That was the best. I loved it. I love it. I love all of it because it is like a process of discovery. And that's my favorite feeling too, is like being able to read a book and realize, oh wow, this is opening up a whole new, I don't know, whole new hallway of possibilities and doors to explore in my reading life. Like I love that feeling. So yeah, I very much resonate with that so much. I'm gonna transfer over to Masha here in a second. I'm going to quickly highlight a couple of chats. Hello, as always. I shall sub to the guest that Joanna declares the winner. What? I don't know that this is a competition at all. I just know that I do put a lot of thought, as I've said many times, into the guests I have on Right Read. And I always want to make sure I have people not only that I respect and admire, but also people I feel like might have a complementary vibe. I was just talking about that before we went live. And I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute too. And thank you so much. I know it's been a while. It's been a hot minute since I've had a video out, and I just want to say thank you to everybody for your patience with my very very slow output on BookTube lately. But I am here, and I do have a lot of video ideas coming up. So just FYI. Oh yes, I heard about the World Cup is going on right now. I think it's going on in the state I live too. So, all right. So Masha, why read?
Such a loaded question. I think similarly to Ashley, I think reading, at least for me personally, it is one of the best forms of media to learn about the world around you. And even though it is a form of entertainment, I think whether you realize it or not, you get to learn so much and you get to grow so much, because our experience in our life, our sense of reality is so limited. And this lets us glimpse into perspectives and distinct voices that we may never come across in life, and experiences that we might not have to deal with. And it can also give us the tools to solve problems in the future. And as you guys know, I read mainly fantasy, and I think a lot of people think fantasy can be silly because magic and dragons and whatever. And I think I had an interview with Janie Wirtz, and I think she said it best, is that we were given an imagination, and if we don't use it, we just kind of become prisoners of the mind. And
Oh,
everything
Masha,
starts.
really quickly, can you turn up your mic or
Oh,
speak a little closer to the mic? It's just a
yeah, of course.
little low.
Is that better?
Oh, it's much better. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
So everything starts with a thought, and if we push those boundaries, we are capable of so much more than we think we are.
Okay, yeah. I love that you were saying that, because that's such a true point about fantasy and a lot of the, I guess, the critiques of it, but absolutely. We learn so much through exploring our imagination, and I think that that's also part of how we not only make sense of the world, but also problem solving, discovering new things for ourselves, learning new ideas and pathways. That's really cool. I love that. Yeah, I wonder if it might help to hold the mic. I don't know if it would hold the mic, or I'm not sure. It is just a little tiny bit quiet, but yeah, love what you were having to say about that though. And I agree with you. I think that like reading fantasy is such a good way to explore the world, like you said, and even beyond the world with the imagination component. But also, to me, it's like the best thing with like reading and traveling. And I know you two are well traveled as well. That just reading and traveling just open your mind up in ways that it's hard to compare. It's hard to compare. Yeah. Just want to say hello to people here. And so, hello there, Britain. And hello there. Almost finished making dinner. Thank you so much for listening to us. Appreciate that. Uh, yeah, so appreciate that so much. And yeah, so I would just love to hear from you all. What are you reading right now? And yeah, let's just go ahead and start with that. So, Ashley, what are you reading right now?
Oh gosh. Well, you know me, Joanna. Chaos. I've got a bit of everything. So I know we've been chatting about some of these, so you probably not all news to you, but I'm currently reading, oh gosh, a few books. The biggest behemoth that I'm reading at the moment is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I am reading this with my friend Abby. We're doing a buddy read, and I think it's taken us 2 months so far. We've got about 200 pages left, so I've got a big classic on the go. I'm also rereading Jade City by Fonda Lee. I'm doing that as a buddy read with Nikhil from Self Esteem. And then I've also got A Dance with Dragons Part 1 by George R. Martin. So those are some of my current reads. So a little bit of gone range, got wide range in there. And I quite like that. I like the fact that there's something, I do generally like to read multiple books at once to kind of dip into different feelings of how I'm feeling. If I fancy, something a bit more, like high fantasy, like George R. R. Martin, my mood can vary day to day. So it's quite nice to have a few books on the go. So those are my current reads at the moment and really enjoying all of them.
Do you ever find with reading so many books at once that you want to read one more than the other? You know what I mean? Like, do you find, I know I should read Count of Monte Cristo, but I really want to read A Song of Ice and Fire, or maybe vice versa. Does that ever happen to you?
This is something I face this problem every time I pick up a new book, which is, am I doing the book? I feel sometimes like I'm doing a book a disservice by reading multiple. Yes, I know. We've got many on the go. I sometimes worry the amount I read in terms of the amount of books I have on the go at the same time. I wonder if I'm doing a book a disservice by reading it amongst others. But I think because I generally shift the medium that I'm reading in, so I have generally one on audio, one physical read, and then one on my Kindle as well. That can help me. It helps me get the balance. Sometimes, yes, I definitely do experience that, where there is just one that pulls my attention so much more. At the moment, I would say it's difficult to say because the Count of Monte Cristo, Abby and I are doing specific chapters every day and catching up on it every day. So the momentum is always there. Whereas something like The Dance with Dragons, I'm very much in Westeros at the moment. A Song of Ice and Fire is completely taking over my brain at the moment. It's generally all I can think about. So naturally, I have quite a big pull to that. And because I generally have an audiobook on the go as well, that one is never really as much a mood thing as just when I can listen to it, because I don't have very much audiobook time. So that's just when I can get to it. But yes, sometimes I found this recently when I was reading another book called Daggermouth. I think I mentioned this one to you, Joanna. It's sort of like a dystopian, really popular book at the moment. And I was reading that alongside these books as well. And I just didn't want to pick it up. And every day I kept telling myself I need to, but I never felt that pull. But then it made me think of the question that you asked, which is why read? And I thought, why am I picking this up if I really, really don't want to? And so, yeah, it does. If I naturally feel that pull to other books more, it can sometimes make me question why I've actually picked up a book in the first place and why I'm continuing with it. So I'm sorry, that probably didn't make any sense at all.
No, it did. It made perfect sense. Yeah. And it sounds like that could definitely be definitely be a motivating factor that one, you have different formats going on, and
Yeah.
two, you have the buddy reads, like the different buddy reads going on. So that's compelling you in a different way. Like I'm excited because then I get to talk to Abby about this or Nikhil about that. And then, I have A Song of Ice and Fire too. And so I could see how that works. And I don't think that you necessarily sacrifice anything by reading multiple books at once. I think it just depends on it just depends on how you're going about it. For me, I sometimes read multiple books at once, but it's very rare. Like usually I just end up going back to one book, one or two books at a time. I don't know why. I don't know why my brain wants to do that. But what about you, Masha? What are you reading right now?
I haven't been reading much recently. The last complete book I finished was The Master of White Storm by Janie Wirtz, and I started reading the unselected diary journals of Emma M. Line, which has kind of taken over the internet.
Yeah.
But I was planning today, later on, and I think you've read this. I'm not sure if Ashley's read this, but to pick up The Spear Cuts Through Water. I've had this forever on my TBR. And I really want to find more standalones. I find it's kind of, I mean, this one's a very popular one, but I always find kind of the same standalones are recommended. And I really want to try to fish out some underrated gems out there.
Yeah, that's a solid one. So, yeah, I personally okay, so with, Spirit Cuts Through Water, we had there's so many people out there who love this book. So, we have one right here, and, I know that tomorrow on I think it's Anita Gada's channel, she's hosting a discussion that's gonna be with herself, with Evie from She Was Only Evie, who is, like, the poster child of Spirit Cuts Through Water. Evie, if you're watching this, she's gonna probably scream that you're reading that book, like scream. She loves that book so much. She's interviewed Simon Jimenez, and then Philip Chase is gonna be on that discussion, and I think Kate Fox, and I think one other person, and I and Ridhima, so from Rid Books is gonna be on that discussion. So, yeah, it's gaining a lot of popularity. I will be honest that it's a book for me that I don't rate books with star ratings, but I always said that if I were to rate it with star ratings, it's one of those books that I would give 5 stars for execution and for what the book is going for and how well Simon Jimenez writes as a modern day, fantasy author. But for me, enjoyment-wise, it was more like a 2 star. Like, it just didn't quite
Mm.
click for my taste, but at the same time, I think it's a very well-written standalone, and I understand why it's making the waves, and high respect for Simon Jimenez, high respect. So, yeah, those are my feelings about that. Wait, what? Do you wanna make her pick up the Bone Hunters? Oh, yeah. So you're 5 books into Malazan. Is that
I
right?
am. I've been meaning to pick up the Bone Hunters forever, but they are such big books. I
Oh, yeah.
just didn't feel like I had the capacity to sit down and read it. Um, so I've kind of paused on that. I really do need to get back to it. Honestly, I think I could restart from the beginning of Malazan and just it would be a new journey the second time.
Yeah.
Um, there is just so much in there. I really love it. It's definitely climbed up to like one of my favorite series of all time. I'm waiting for Ashley to pick it up.
Yes.
It's
I
it's a
am.
really funny one because when I first heard about Malazan, especially getting back into reading, I was like, I'm never going to read that. It's not happening. And I always had this idea of it. I couldn't even explain to you what I thought Malazan would be, but when I picked it up, it was so much more. It was so in depth with so much complexity. And I was really blown away. I really loved the first book from the beginning.
Me too. Yes. So Malazan Book of the Fallen I mean, everybody probably knows about the series, 10-book series. And yeah, it is one that I feel very grateful I actually started it before I started a channel and before there was much Malazan content on YouTube. And in that way, I think it was good for me because I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't even know it was a 10-book series, and I didn't know that we were going to go to a different continent in book 2 or anything. But it is quite sprawling. It is massive in scope, and, it is complex in themes, I would say. Yeah, and it's a lot to take in. There's a lot of information. So, I think that's understandable, and it's an emotional journey, and I think that 2 things I think that don't get said enough about Malazan is that, 1, it is incredibly deep and emotional. A lot of people think, "Oh, people just wanna read this because they wanna feel like they're so intellectual and" you know what I mean? To have
Yeah.
that badge of honor that I read Malazan, but it's more so I mean, there's nothing wrong with that because it is a feat to be able to read a 10-book series like that, but at the same time, it is an emotional journey, and I thought for me, it got more and more emotional as it went on.
Hmm.
But 2, the other thing I think also needs to be said, I just always feel like I need to say it, is that it is quite violent. Now I do agree, I understand where Erickson's coming from and not calling it grimdark, and I agree with that. However, there is quite a bit of sexual violence, and it gets pretty intense, and I always want people to know about that because it happens in almost every book after book 1, and to a very strong degree, even into, like, book 9. So, just be warned about that for future readers, but at the same time, it is my favorite series of all time, and I would say that with The Bone Hunter specifically, I know Erickson has said that that book and maybe some of the ones after that could be considered like 2 books in 1
Mhm.
And I think it helped me for the Bone Hunters to approach it that way. So I actually read the first half almost like it was one book, read something else in between. I think I was reading the Red Rising series or something in between. And then I went back and then read the second half of Bone Hunters. And it, for me, I think it worked really well to go about it that way and to be able to take it all in. So that's just a little tip.
If you had to choose your favorite book from that series, which one would it be?
10.
10?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the end of that book, the end of that journey that gave me the biggest book hangover I think I've ever had in my life.
Mhm.
Like for a couple of years, I couldn't get over the feeling of finishing that series. Like I remember I finished the series and I felt like I could like I felt like the next day I could just start over again. I could
Yeah.
pick up Gardens of the Moon and just start all over again. And I didn't do that. I didn't do that, but I felt like I almost could have. And then the other weird thing about it was when I finished the series, I picked up Gardens of the Moon. I did read like the beginning of it, just the prologue and the beginning of it. And I can't tell you how weird it was because
Mhm.
it felt like I was suddenly reading it with better glasses on. Like, I understood things and terms that I just didn't really question much the first time I read it, and then I was like, "Oh, like, I totally get what this is." I feel like I almost learned a language or something. It was very odd. But, yeah, I that's my favorite book. Maybe my second favorite is Midnight Tides, possibly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I know you're a big Memories of Ice fan, right?
Currently, I would say Memories of Ice is my favorite. And I also watched your YouTube video where you talked about each of the books, but House of Chains, I don't know what it is about that
It's a
book,
good
but
book.
it has such a special place in my heart. It just really stood out. And Midnight Tides is great too, and it's funny. And I don't think that's also mentioned enough. Like
It's
Steven
funny.
Erickson is funny.
Yeah.
But House of Chains, I don't know. I think about that one really often.
Yeah, yeah. House of Chains is really good. It is so underrated.
Yeah.
I think it is so underrated. I thought it was chef's kiss. Like that ending was to me perfection. I
Yeah.
don't think it would have worked if he had done a different kind of ending, and I think that's maybe why some people feel deflated about it, but I absolutely love it. So I'm with you about that. Sorry, Ashley, I feel like we're talking about a series you haven't read.
No, this is great. This is getting me very excited for it. And it's interesting to hear you talk about the different titles actually, because even though I've not read the series, I have heard of the titles because people obviously I watch your videos and I hear about them. And a big one that I feel is probably the most popular title from the series, but one that I don't think either of you just mentioned there. So this is what I love about how different people react to different books. The one I always hear the most about is Dead House Gates.
Oh, yeah, that's actually, it's interesting because when I read it, I didn't love it as much as the first book. And I feel like that's my most unpopular opinion about the series.
I'm
Yeah.
with you on that one.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah.
I love
I
that though. I love that it can just so many people will interpret different books in this series in so many different ways. It's something that I'm currently experiencing with The Song of Ice and Fire. The different titles that people choose as their favorite and why, and I love that. I love hearing different people's different reasons of why different books worked better for them and out of a series and different takes. I love that. I think it's so interesting.
Oh, man. Now I think I really need you to read Malazan someday. I mean, no pressure and not right away.
I've got Gardens of the Moon. It's right there. It's right there.
I do feel very curious to hear your thoughts, Ashley. I really do. And I promise you, as somebody who's a huge fan, I promise you, I do not ever take it. Like if somebody says they don't like Mavs, I'm like, totally understandable, totally cool. Like it's not a series I widely recommend. And at the same time, like I'd so be here to hear your thoughts. And if you hated it, I would understand. But I'd be so curious. Um,
Thing I've heard. I can't see me not liking it from what people have said, but I'm very excited to give it a go. Very excited.
Yeah. Hello, Esme. It's so wonderful to see you here in the chat. She says she's only here for like 10 minutes, but so happy to see her faves together. That's so sweet. So thank you so much. Yeah. And speaking of humor, to Hole and Bug, oh, Toll and Bug are the best.
They're
Love
so
those
good.
two. These are characters, by the way, that don't get introduced until book 5. And this, so here's the thing about Mlaz, and I'll just go ahead and say it. I'd love to hear, Masha, anything you want to add to this, but I think the reason why it's hard for me to widely recommend it is because it is very subversive, but not in the same way that like Joe Abercrombie's series is. Like in a way, Joe Abercrombie's series is very much poking fun at fantasy tropes, right? Poking fun at an idea of a wizard and all that stuff. But with Malazan specifically, it is being subversive in a way that, like, the things that we look forward to in a fantasy book to make us feel grounded, to make us feel at home. We have our found family, we have our hero, we have our good guys and our bad guys. Erickson takes all that and throws it out the window. So instead, we don't really have a certain main character that we're following the whole time. Instead, we are following literally hundreds of characters to the point where even in book 10, you're still being introduced to characters. So you never get that feeling of like, I'm following my people, but you do at the same time because you do get to know certain characters and then you do like start to love when they come back in certain books, but you're never just sticking with one group. And then morality is twisted on its head. So as soon as you think these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Those good guys are maybe not so good. And those bad guys maybe have a reason for why they're doing what they're doing. And he kind of twists your thoughts around in terms of that, which I think you'll appreciate. As a Song of Ice and Fire fan, I think you'll appreciate that twist on morality. But then yeah, so there's so much in the series, and again, multiple continents. It's more just like this big sprawling world and story, but at the same time, it's so brilliant the way it all comes together, and thematically, it's a masterpiece.
Guys,
Sure.
you've sold it to me.
Well, Masha, Masha, feel free to add anything too. Yeah.
I think you touched upon everything. Just like I love the themes in Malazan, especially like compassion and kindness. Compassion, especially, you'll see, um, like that is a theme throughout the series, at
Mhm.
least to where I've gone, and in Memories of Ice, just like some of my favorite quotes of all time as well. Um, I think you'll find, like we kind of talked about previously, just the emotional journey of it and being able to look back and making all these connections and figuring out, morality and the cost of war and justice and power dynamics and all of that. Good versus evil, morally gray. Like, no one, like, there's no one really that great. It just does all of that so well. And it really has everything I think I've ever wanted in a series, from magic to characters to companions and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so well said too. Yeah, I agree with all of that. It's very thematically deep, like, there's so much conversation in there, and yes, compassion is a main theme, and people make fun of that sometimes. They're like, "Oh, 'cause compassion," but it really, really is. I mean, you'll see, and you'll see more of it, but
There's nothing more in this world we need right now than some more
so well said.
compassion.
Yes,
I think we can learn something from that.
yes, I love that. So well said, yeah. So, I don't know, if you do pick it up again, I'd be so curious to hear your thoughts.
I will pick it up soon. I have to get back to that, and the Wars of Light and Shadows. I'm on the fourth book.
On the 4th book, yeah. Oh,
Yes.
I'd be curious to hear about that too because, I'm on book I finished book 7,
Mhm.
like, over a year ago, and, the reason I've been putting it on pause, I was in a read along with AP Canavan and Critical Dragon and Philip Chase, but, because of circumstances, we haven't been able to get together for that 7th book discussion, but we do have a date, so if anybody's hearing this, we are going to have that discussion out next month, and then, we'll be reading on to book 8 in Words of Light and Shadow, finally. But yeah, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about that so far, and it sounds like you picked up some other words too. You picked up, uh
I read the first three books of Jani's series. I've read Daughter of the Empire. in the Empire trilogy with Raymond E. Feist,
Mhm.
and I've read her debut, Sorcerer's Legacy, and then I read Master of White Storm. I have been meaning to get ride to ride Hell's Chasm. Yeah, to ride
Oh,
Hell's
yeah.
Chasm. Um, but it was just a little bit too much for at the time of moving and stuff.
Oh,
My
yeah.
brain has been all over the place. Um, I really like Jani's work. I really like her prose. It's definitely dense and kind of similarly to Malazan. It's not one I would widely recommend. And even for myself, like I sometimes need to kind of get back into it. Um, but it's very meticulous, right? Like each sentence is so meticulously planned to pack a certain punch. Like there is not a single word I feel like that I could take out.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think she has some impeccable diction is how I would describe it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I do agree too. It's a writing style that not everybody's gonna love by any means. I think that is going to be the most divisive thing about Jenny Wirtz. I have read her standalone to Ride Hell's Chasm. That was my first Wirtz, and even with that book, it's not quite as rich as her series, I would say. But at the same time, I it took me about 100 pages, and I wasn't sure I liked it for the first 100 pages, and then after that, I loved it. And actually, I do think, like, eventually, when the time is right, that would be a good standalone to add to the
Yeah.
list of standalones, of fantasy standalones too. So, yeah.
It's really interesting to see because I've read her debut and the writing is so different.
Oh,
Neither are, like, I think both are so sharp and refreshing. Obviously, the Wars of Light and Shadow is her magnus opus, so it's a little bit more lush and poetic and a little bit more of a stylistic choice. But reading Sorcerer's Legacy to see her range in writing is incredible. It's so sharp and quick and
interesting.
fast, but no less like beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's neat that she has, like, she can vary her technique in that
Mhm.
way. I think that's so cool. Yeah, it's outstanding. For me, when it comes to Jenny Wirtz's writing style, I think my favorite thing she does is nature descriptions.
Mhm.
Anytime she does nature descriptions, I am just like, "Ah," or setting descriptions. Like, she breathes life into settings in a way that I think is unparalleled. I've never come across anything like it before. Yeah, so that's my favorite thing when it comes to her writing. Uh, let's see, I was gonna ask another question about that, and I can't remember what it is. I've only read To Ride Hell's Chasm, Words of Light and Shadow. I know she has said that she does have other books that are a little bit more accessible. So, like I think, like you said, you read her first one.
Mhm.
Is that Master of White Storm, or is that
Her first one is Sorcerer's Legacy,
Sorcerer's Legacy?
and
Okay.
that is so that was her debut, and that is the one that had Raymond E. Feist ask her to collaborate for the Empire trilogy. And
Yeah.
that's really great to see because if you read both, you can see her like personality and her writing come through in the Empire trilogy as well. Even though it was like a very collaborative work, it was just really interesting to hear Jani's voice as well.
Yeah, yeah. I have, the Daughter of the Empire on my shelf, and I will get to it, but I think I'm gonna finish her 10-book series first. There are audiobooks now for the first 3, I think, Wars of Light and Shadow books, if I'm not mistaken. And there are
Yes.
audiobooks for the last 2, but
Yes.
the first 3 were not out when I started the series, so I've only read the series visually, but I'm kinda jealous because I love immersion reading, so I bet that would make it so much easier. Yeah, that's really cool. I bought a book by Jenny Wirtz because of Joanna. Oh, okay, well, yeah, totally understandable because of life, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts whenever you get to it. Just to answer your question, I'm so sorry, I haven't answered it yet. Malazan is not a read-along friendly series. I kind of agree with that. I think it depends. I mean, some people are able to do it. Philip and AP did it up until, like, book 10 at least. And, but a lot of times, yeah, I've seen more often than not when there have been large read-alongs of Malazan Book of the Fallen, they usually tank. I happened to read it on my own, but it kinda coincided with at the same time as Jimmy from Chatting with Nuts read it. So I got to be part of some fantastic discussions about Malazan on his channel. So shout out for those discussions because I think they were just some of my favorite discussions of all time. And got to join in with Philip because he was reading it around the same time too. The second time that is. So it can kind of work out where you kind of all end up sort of on the same page, but I agree it can be really difficult because if you're trying to coordinate a big read along, Malazan, like Ashley, like you were saying, it's a series that it's so personal. So everybody resonates with different books or has a different order of what their favorite is or has different feelings about it. And that's the power of it. That's the beauty of it. But it also makes it hard because getting everybody literally on the same page is kind of challenging, like at the same time or on the same book at the same time anyway. So yeah. Let's see if I'm missing anything else here. Uh Okay, Colin Mace narrates the first 3 books so well. Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, I really wanna check those out. I'm really excited when I get to books at least the last 2 books in the series that I get to have that opportunity. So, Ashley, I wanna ask you a question because you mentioned in the Why Read answer that you love it when a book opens up something new for you that you didn't know you could love before. What is the last book that did that for you?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, to be honest, I think A Song of Ice and Fire generally has made me think things and feel things that I didn't realize I could think or feel, particularly in regards to particular characters and what they go through and the decisions they make. Something that has really surprised me. The reason that surprised me is because I thought that I would already have those feelings from having seen the television adaptation. I was quite not nervous, but apprehensive going into reading the books, thinking I already knew everything from the series that I'd watched on TV. And oh my goodness, I've told you this before of just how different the experience is. And something that I've learned about myself, I don't know what this says about me, but something that I've learned about myself and the way I think and feel is how I feel about characters that are generally on the surface so wrong and bad and have so much fault to them. And yet I can understand them in so many ways. That is something that I never would have ever thought I would be able to do, to step into their shoes. And I think something that is kind of missing from the TV series that you get in the books for A Song of Ice and Fire is that inner monologue.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I didn't realize books could do that so well, is how I would feel so passionately and so strongly for a character that really I should, and do in some ways, dislike intensely or hate. And yet I feel for them. That contrast of that emotion is something that I think it's incredible when a book can do that in a way that's convincing, that I'm actually thinking about it after I've finished reading the page. For me to be thinking about those characters days, weeks, months, years after I've read about them and still think about their actions and their thoughts, that for me is something that I didn't think a book could do. I used to be somebody who would read a book and then, potentially a few weeks later, I probably would have forgotten the plot. Whereas now with some of the books I'm reading at the moment, that's not happening. So that at the moment is something that's happening. So it's happened with A Song of Ice and Fire. It also happened a lot with Empire of the Vampire for me. And also a big one for me is Abercrombie. It always comes back to Abercrombie as well. Age of Madness and the First Law trilogy. My goodness, I can't. Apparently I love really, really bad characters. I just love them.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh, such great examples. I love all of them. I think that's actually something that fantasy does really well, isn't it? I think fantasy, I mean, we talked about that with Malazan, but I think the fantasy genre does a really good job of showing you the mindset of other characters or people who are problematic, for lack of a better word, So I think that's well said. And it doesn't take away from the horrible things they do and the scrutiny that we should have, but at the same time, it helps us to understand maybe where they're coming from or why they are the way they are to some degree. Like,
Yeah,
man, yeah, those are some good examples.
I think it's the doing it in such a convincing way. I think that's something for me is really important in my reading at the moment. I said earlier that I put down the book Daggermouth, and I didn't expect to have a really deep connection with those characters. I didn't expect that at all. It wasn't the nature of the book that I thought it would be, so that's fine. I can't critique it for something like that, but I I didn't get anything from the characters at all that felt like it was worth holding on to.
Yeah.
Whereas there are so many other books that I've experienced. Like another example would be, I've not finished the entire series yet, but I know that you're currently reading it as well, as The Realm of the Elderlings. Those moments between characters, such small interactions, just tiny little moments, but they're just so powerful that I think about them for days on end.
Oh my gosh, my heart.
Oh,
So for those who don't know, I just recently finished the Tawny Man trilogy. So I think we're in the same place now, right? Like you and I.
we are in the exact same place.
Yes, yes. And vlog coming out. I actually have it done. I just need to post it. I need to get a thumbnail together and I'll be posting that maybe next week sometime. Spoiler vlog though. But goodness, that series, talk about interiority of character and talk about the glimmering of those small moments and choices. Um, Masha, I think that you've read Farseer. That's right. Is that right? Yeah. And oh my gosh, so you have Live Ship next.
Well,
I have live ship next.
I think you, because you loved the Masha, didn't you read R.J. Barker's series? Was it the Bone?
Bone Ships.
So good.
I've heard that they are compared frequently, and I don't know if that's just because of the nature of the plot. But I think you loved the Bone Ships, didn't you?
I
Masha?
loved it. I hear a lot of people always say that Tide Child might be a ripoff of Live Ships. I
Oh,
have
no.
down to the cover, right? I have a good friend. Her name is Kiara. She is also here on YouTube. She Realm of the Elderlings is her favorite series, but I think Tide Child has topped that. And she said they are kind of comparable, but they do deal with like different themes and just like plot in general. But I do think I'm going to have a great time with Live Ships. I won't lie, one of my controversial opinions is I didn't love Farseer
No, I
trilogy.
don't think, yeah, I don't think that's controversial at all. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think Live Ships will work much better for me. I just haven't had the time to get back into it. I keep pushing it off.
You know what? I don't know if it's in my head, and I'm probably wrong about this because I know a lot of friends. This is so wrong. This is probably a wrong theory, but I do know some, especially female readers, who don't love Fitz that much. Uh, and I think that's understandable. I think that's totally understandable. I will say I did love Fitz in the Farseer trilogy, though he is incredibly flawed and insufferable at the same time at times with his choice making. But I will say this: it did take me several years to finally get to the Live Ships, which I read last year.
Mhm.
And I will say this, I think Ship of Magic, for me personally, topped every Farseer book and is honestly, to me, peak fantasy.
Yeah.
There are, like, some parts of it I didn't love, but overall, it's actually still one of the best, in my opinion, one of my favorite fantasy books.
Mhm.
The rest of Live Ship did, for me, tick down from there, and I do have some qualms, but then now that I finished Tawny Man, I could see why everything is perfection now because it's like Tawny Man makes you look back at both the Farseer and Live Ships,
Mhm.
and it builds upon that so perfectly. It's incredible. It's incredible. I'm completely, like, Hob fan now, total Hob fan. So, I would be curious if you end up enjoying it as more as you go on, but totally understandable not to love Fitz and Farseer. Yeah.
I didn't hate him. I was very neutral towards him. I didn't have this like pull towards
Mhm.
him. But I do really enjoy Robin Hobb's like writing. as much as kind of trauma filled her books are, it's almost like cozy as
Yeah.
well, just her writing style. So yeah, I'm excited. I'll definitely pick it up soon because of you two.
I
Yeah.
I think you will. I have a feeling, Masha, that you're going to like Live Ships and Tawny Man more. And I don't know, perhaps it's biased because I think we might have a similar experience. But I've struggled with Farseer. I really struggled with Farseer, particularly the third book, Assassin's Quest. I just found the pacing was for me it was far too long, and the ending didn't, for me, justify the length of the book and the events that took place. But after having read now Live Ships and Tawny Man in particular, now looking back, I would love to see what my experience would be of rereading Farseer, because now I look back and I think I can see where all that I get it. For me, I didn't get the payoff for that until later on. So I think you may. I'd love to know how you do feel when you've read it. I would love to see what your experience is and if you change your thoughts on Farseer.
That's kind of the same experience I had with Farseer. One of my issues with that series was it's a slow burn series, right? Which I have no issues with. But I found the endings to be too quick for me, that
Mhm.
it was a little bit jarring going from this like slow, more kind of slice of life pacing. And then all of a sudden I got hit with these endings in a much smaller page count. And I found that too abrupt for my liking.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think that's totally justified. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very curious. I'm very curious. We have more Hop comments here, but first, before I go on to the Hop comments, just want to address this because Baslag has come up a couple of times. I have read Perdido Street Station and I loved it. And I don't know what's wrong with me. It's one of those series where it's like, I love this book. And then I put off the second book forever. But I will eventually return to that series. I will get to the Scar at some point. That's by China Miéville. And I always say that with that book, that first book of the Baslag series, to me, I mean, it's different. It's more of like this kind of grotesque setting, but at the same time, there's something about it that makes me feel like for readers who really enjoy Scott Lynch and Erickson, there's something about those two authors that for me felt it felt like those might be some comp titles too, or comp authors for Baslag. I could be totally off on that, but it is weird and interesting and has some cosmic horror elements. But I loved it. I had a great time with it. Thought it was a lot of fun. But I will eventually get back to that series. And as far as yeah, Fool's Errand and Golden Bull are perfect books. Let's see. I keep putting off Live Ship Traders because I was so underwhelmed by Assassin's Quest, easily the weirdest paced book of the lot. And I will be seated for your thoughts. I will be sat and seated for your thoughts on Live Ship, Masha, on my favorite Realm of the Elderling series so far. Yeah, and then Derry here in the chat, struggling with internet, but chat says Hob, who is perfect in all things Farseer is generally considered less than the rest of this series. And so, for those of you who don't know, Derry has one of the best channels. She is the best resource on Realm of the Elderlings that you could possibly find on the internet. Derry, please remind me how many times you've read the series, even though you've answered this question before for me. I think it's something like, is it like 13 times or
I
maybe
think
more?
it's more. I'm sure last time when I spoke to her, she said it was like 23.
23 times.
Was it
There you
23?
go.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry if I'm wrong, Derry. I feel like that was what, because I think we asked, Abby and I asked Derry when we spoke to her a little while ago. But yeah, she's amazing. So
Yeah.
much knowledge.
She's amazing. She's absolutely incredible. Farseer is even rougher on Riri because Fitz won't. Uh, yeah, about Molly for a single second. Yep. Uh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I have so many thoughts, but I just feel like I can't say much because I like after reading Tawny Man, it's like, how do you talk about this stuff? Part of the issue is Hob is generally uninterested in action sequences. I am not much into, I mean, I guess it depends. It really depends for me, but I'm okay that she's not interested in action sequences for me personally. Uh, yeah. Perdido is great, is it not? I thought it was great. I had a great time with it. I don't know, again, Britain, what's wrong with me that I haven't gotten back to it. I always rate Assassin's Quest as Most improved on the reread. I could totally see that. I call Baslag a glob of spit in the face of epic fantasy. Okay, yeah, I guess I could see that as well. 24th read, Jerry's read it before, will break through the page and unearth the deepest subconscious thoughts of Hob. Probably even more so than Hob knows. Yeah, subconscious thoughts, right. So there you go. Yay. Yeah. So those are some great thoughts. I obviously read here's the other thing though with Hob, and that this is something that I actually told to my friend Thomas R. Howell recently, because he was reading, I think, Royal Assassin and decided to put it down because he needed a break from reading in general. And the one thing I said is I totally support that, because and I'm sure Jerry can back me up on this. I think Cobb is one of those authors. I mean, I think every author, sometimes you just have to be called to the book. But for me, with Hobb especially, she is an author that I feel like I need to be in reading her at the right time. Like, I can't just pick her up to pick her up. Like, I have to be called to it. And then it's like the most incredible, beautiful, intense, heart-rendering experience. But it's not something I feel like people should just pick up because they keep hearing it's great. I think you need to be called to it. That's my feelings about Hobb.
I agree. And I know that a lot of people do something, I think, quite similar to us, Joanna, where you do take breaks, and sometimes it takes you a while to pick up, the next trilogy or the next quartet in the series. And I think that's good. I think it's quite important with her books to let them sit, because actually I think that does help the experience. I know that Derry actually said specifically to Abby and I, when we finished Tawny Man, to take a break, to not go straight into Rain Wilds, because the expectations are completely different, the experience is different. So I think definitely you have to be in the right frame of mind. I agree. Oh, I did get it right. It was 23.
Nice job. We got to have that this booktube trivia game going on. So that's really cool. Almost caught up. So we're getting asked in the chat here, is Silversaint for the Silversaints of Empire of the Vampire? And the answer is yes, right? So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Indeed. I just Empire of the Vampire is the series that got me back into reading fantasy as an adult. That and a series called The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. I read both series around the same time. And after that, a whole plethora of other fantasy books were brought to me. But Empire of the Vampire is the one that just got me in there. So it's very close to my heart for that reason. It's got a lot of things about it I love. I love the gothic nature of it. I love the art in it. I love the characters. Oh, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful experience.
I was going to say that. I really feel like there's something about fantasy art that can really bring in a fan. Like, I think there's something about it generating a sense of connection to the stories, and maybe even helping to propel a fandom. Like, when I see on Instagram that there is a series that has a lot of different fantasy art, there's something about that. Would you agree? Do you agree with that, Masha?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like, in a way, I'm not sure if it's the right way to describe it, but like it almost makes it more accessible because it like reaches a wider audience, and we all love like visuals, right? So it helps us get into the world and a little bit of a glimpse into that, easier sometimes than reading a little blurb about the book.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Artwork and music too. I mean, obviously adaptations do a lot for a series like Lord of the Rings and even A Song of Ice, even Game of Thrones, even though that series didn't go in the most positive direction at the end. I mean, there can be no denying that, especially because of the earlier entries of that series, it did bring a lot of people into the fantasy genre. But I feel like music and art really are underestimated in its value in bringing people into the genre. Yeah, it's just something I've been thinking about a lot lately. So, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a cool way. I spoke to Jay about this when we interviewed him. We asked him if he always meant for there to be art in the books, or if it just happened. And he said he did always intend for it to have that. He said that something he found when he had written Nevernight was that so much art was created by the fan base, and it introduced, then the art introduced a lot of new readers that he never would have gained before. And so he said he always wanted to have that for Empire of the Vampire as well. And I thought that was really, he said he had a big part of his conversation was, he said about art feeding art, you know, and if you've got, he said the book created lots of art, but then lots of other art was created because of the art that was created in the first place, and then it just fed it gets kept on getting fed into different things. And I thought that was a really cool thing. So yeah, I agree with both of you on that hugely.
Yeah, I love that. By the way, everyone, if you're a fan of Jake Kristoff, you got to check out that discussion Ashley had with Jake from Nerd Level Rising and Jake Kristoff. It was so good. And that was actually one of my favorite parts of the discussion. I mean, there were a couple parts I loved in that discussion, but specifically the art feeding art is so interesting. How people can be inspired by art and that can inform what they're doing with their series. And then that can be and that the book itself can inspire art. I think that's a really neat. And I know, of course, we were talking about Jenny Wirtz. Jenny Wirtz is an artist, and her husband is a very famous artist, Don Mates. He's one of my favorite artists in SFF. So, like, that's just I just think that the world colliding in that way, can be just one of the most incredible things. Same with music, as I've said. Yeah, so absolutely incredible. Let's see, I'm gonna catch up here a little bit. I have not read Empire of a Vampire. Uh, let's see. I love when there's art in a book, so I don't get curious and then spoil it for myself.
Good point.
Googling character art. Yeah, the art in Empire of a Vampire is stunning. Yeah, from what I've seen, it looks incredible. Best cover art. It helps that Empire of a Vampire is such a cool take on vampire lore. I think I can't remember if it was with Derry who said this to me or who it was, but I think some friends have told me before that they weren't sure Empire of the Vampires would be a series for me personally, but that I could probably try like the first book on audio and that the audiobook is incredible. So I don't know. I do think I'm on like a long list with my Libby app to maybe check out the audiobook of Empire of a Vampire and just see. Yeah, but I think that's amazing too, that it's been such an inspiration and such a launching point for you starting your channel, Ashley. That's so cool. And let's see. Oh, they're talking about Vampire Hunter D. I saw the cartoon of that a long time ago. So I'm curious about that. Yeah, so again, that chat was so incredible that Ashley had on her channel. And I kind of wanted to transition to asking you two about a couple of series, different ones for either one of you, but I guess this goes into the topic of darker fantasy. But Ashley, Berserk, I know that this is a series. Have you finished that? And then I next want to transition to talking about Baker with Masha, because I saw that that was either on your TBR or maybe something that you were reading. So I'd be really curious to hear thoughts because I have read Baker. I've read all the Second Apocalypse books, but I haven't read Berserk. So I might be starting that eventually, but go ahead, Ashley. What is it? How far are you? Have you finished the series? Why read Berserk?
Okay, I'm going to try not to talk for too long because I really want to know Masha's thoughts on or Baker. Have you not read it yet, Masha? Did you say?
I haven't read it. I just picked up the
first book, Darkness That Comes Before. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw the books and I was like, I've had this forever on my list, so I'm snagging this.
I'm very excited to hear you both talk about that in a moment. I am up to volume 27 of Berserk. I believe there are 42, so I'm over halfway. I tend to read 2 and then have a little break, then 2, then have a little break. It's how I get to, they're quite expensive to buy, so I kind of have to let myself only do a little bit at a time. Berserk, I think most people would agree that I jumped in at the deep end in terms of the darkness of manga that I picked up. This is my first manga series, so
what?
Honestly, Jake, Nerd Level Rising, he spoke about it so much on his channel. And after I heard him talk about it on his channel, it kept then, the algorithm doing its thing, it kept on appearing. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to go for it. And I knew the nature of the sort of things that Jake liked to read. So I thought we've got quite similar taste. Why read it? That's a great question. Joanna, you all remember this because we had a chat about dark books before, where we spoke about the fact that there are some things that we would read, but we wouldn't necessarily recommend
Yeah.
other people to read. I think we spoke about A Little Life by Hannah Yanagihara, things like that, or something like My Dark Vanessa. It's one of those things where I go in with the same approach with Berserk. I don't think I would ever recommend it to somebody because I would feel that people would probably think I'm crazy if I said, you should read this. However, I do think it is an incredible series, but I could totally see why a lot of people would say it's not for them. It is definitely, and it could be due to the fact that it is a graphic novel, so the dark nature of it is very explicit. It's right in front of you. It's not just words. You know, you can't hide from it. There's no covering it up. I think that's something that I had to really think about when I was reading, is any of these moments that seem quite extreme, it's probably more extreme because I can actually see it rather than just read the descriptions. But I do think it has been, similar to what I was saying at the beginning of the conversation, it's a lens. It's a lens of seeing the world, and it just happens to be an incredibly dark one. I think it shows the absolute extremes of, I guess if you could call it, human nature, but it very much to the extreme of how dark someone can go in their own thoughts and their own experience of the world. But Kentaro Miura has such a beautiful way of balancing it out with some moments of lightness. There's a lot of found family, and a real big, I guess a big thing is, you know, what are we fighting for? What are we, in everything that's going on really badly around us, what is going to keep us going? Why should we continue to fight against the darkness and things like that? And I think he manages always to have a reason. There's always a reason that the main character Guts can find to keep going, despite all the odds being so against him. And I love that. I love that there is still that hope. There's something. We spoke about that a lot when we spoke about dark books. So that's why I like to read it, because it always has that little element of hope, I would say.
Wow.
I thought I was going to go on for too long. That's it.
That's not too long at all, for one. I wanted to know the answer to that, and that's so interesting. I'm really glad to hear that. I'm very curious to try that journey at some point. I'm currently reading a manga right now that is incredibly bleak, honestly. I'm reading, it's an adaptation of Osamu Dazai's No Longer Human, and it's by Junji Ito. Junji Ito is the same manga artist who did Uzumaki, which I loved. Uzumaki, absolute masterpiece in my opinion, but that one is also pretty dark and absurd, and this one is also that. It's exactly that kind of style, but I have read No Longer Human, the novel, a translation of that novel, because of course it's Japanese literature, and it's it's one of those things I'm like, why did I want to read this? I don't know exactly what is calling me to read such a dark story, except that it is semi-autobiographical. No Longer Human is a semi-autobiographical story of Osamu Dazai and how his suicide attempts. It's like every trigger warning you can imagine is in that book, but basically it's about the deepest state of depression and alienation and viewpoint of how absurd and dark and horrible it is to be a human being on this planet. Like, it is so dark. It is incredibly horrible in so many ways. And I think it's gotten a lot of attention, I guess, on TikTok too, because there is this perspective, and it's like it's important to be able to understand this perspective exists and I guess examine it. But it is hard. It's not an easy perspective. And to read it in a manga version, I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest. I'm not sure. I'm just in a very unsure feeling right now about the whole thing. But it does make me question myself a little bit, because I am somebody, and this has been pointed out to me before, that I do seem to get drawn into reading a lot of dark things. And it is something that I think it is something I'm trying to grapple with, and I have some ideas about why I do it, but I don't wanna get too deep in the weeds here. First, I wanna go ahead and transition to Masha. Have you read Berserk, or do you have any interest in that? And then also, I would love to hear about your interest in Baker.
I think what we have in common is that we all kind of like reading darker things.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I have a very high threshold for dark books. It takes a lot for me to feel uncomfortable. I think there's maybe one book where I was like, I need to go for a walk. I don't know what that says about me, but I think it's not that it's necessary, but sometimes it is a way to challenge. I think there's a spider on my roof. So if you see me run, that's why.
No. Speaking of dark things, yikes.
Oh my God. Dylan, if you're watching, can you come get the spider, please? Um, so it is a way for me to kind of challenge myself. And I sometimes like to sit in being uncomfortable. I have someone coming for the spider now. So um, I actually can't. Living in Australia was, I'm just sweating thinking about it. So I do have an interest in reading Berserk. I haven't gotten to that yet because I'm reading some other manga. I know Ashley is also reading Attack on Titan. I'm wearing my Attack on Titan shirt
Yeah,
as
yeah, yeah. I
well.
wanted to ask about that too. Yeah, go ahead.
So I love Attack on Titan. I think Berserk I was kind of leaving for a later date just because I have some interest in some other mangas at first. And as for Baker, I have heard it is a challenging book. It is a series that people find that really makes them think and reflect, that it is on the darker side, that it is one of the darkest books people read. And anytime I hear that, I like to take a look for myself because it's not often I have the same experience just because of not really having trigger warnings. And yeah, I guess it just provides a new lens. Like Ashley says, it's new perspectives. It's, yeah, I'm not sure. I'd
Yeah.
have to think about that.
Yeah. When it comes to dark things, I don't like to be and I'm not saying either any of us are like this at all. In fact, I would say we're all probably on the same page, I'm gonna guess. But I don't like dark things for the sake of being dark. Like I really want something to have a certain purpose or have a thematic is to have some thematic weight or significance in the story.
Yeah.
And Baker, I'm not gonna say Baker is perfect, okay? Like, that there aren't things to criticize, but I loved my journey with the Second Apocalypse series because I do feel like Baker is using that content in a very specific way thematically. He is taking a look at the darkest shadow of the human psyche, and he's trying to make you question yourself. Like, he's trying to make you question even some of the more altruistic or positive aspects of our human nature and see if there could be some root of either self-deception in that or selfish motivation in that. So it's not an easy read and it is a challenging read. And I do appreciate that though. I think I really appreciate it, even if I don't agree with that worldview, because I don't necessarily agree with that worldview, but I appreciate being able to explore it. And I think there's something uh, that's important about being able to expand ourselves to be able to look at views that even are different than our own. And to do it in a fantasy setting, I think that makes it all the more digestible in some ways. Now, I did think with Baker, my favorite books in that series are all in the second series because the way the Second Apocalypse series is structured, you have a trilogy, which is the Prince of Nothing trilogy,
Hmm.
and then you have some space, and then you have the Aspect Emperor series, which is a
Okay.
4-book series. Yeah. And my favorite book in the series is the second book in the Aspect Emperor series, which is The White Luck Warrior. But I have personally, and this might be a hot take because I've talked to a couple of friends here on BookTube who prefer book 2 in the Prince of Nothing trilogy above all of them, and that book is a banger. That was one of my favorite books the year I read it. But at the same time, my favorite, I prefer the second series. Now, I will say, yeah, trigger warnings abound for Baker. It is a world where the culture is just intense with the misogyny. And I think the reason why I personally understood, and Baker has talked about this before, that depiction does not equal endorsement. This is not what he's trying to endorse. He's trying to criticize that. And in fact, in a way, you could say that he and Erickson are a little similar in that they're trying to get their readers. They're putting this dark content in their series not for shock value, but because they want their readers to critique it in our own world and also in fantasy in general, like why fantasy authors are adding this in. That's what I think the intent is. And for me, I think that I was able to understand that coming from Baker because he does spend so much time in the perspective of a harlot character, of a prostitute character in this misogynist world. And because I felt like he did such, I think, incredible work going into her interiority, into her perspective, into her background. Like I felt like, okay, I think he's trying to do something with this. And that was what got me to really trust him as a writer. I do think as well, I will say this, I think his prose it's exceptional. It is one of my favorites in all of fantasy. He has this way of writing these quotes, like almost religious biblical quotes in the world that have so much weight, that have so much gravitas to it, and it's absolutely incredible. The sophistication in his prose, absolutely incredible. So it doesn't feel like a lot of dark fantasy where you read, where it's like you could tell the author's trying to be edgy and it's kind of fake. There's like a front to it. It doesn't feel like that way with Baker. It feels like this guy just has so much command. His way around a sentence is just unlike anything I've seen before. So, yeah, I would say if you pick it up, just major trigger warnings, obviously, and it is dark. It is a series where if you need to have a series where you can root for your characters, this might not be the series for you. But if you can go along with that, then there's, I think, a lot to unpack and so many interesting, rich questions and explorations on the human condition.
Yeah, it's definitely the one I probably get recommended the most in the last years. Is the Prince of Nothing series. So I'm excited. I'm definitely going in with an eye for all this because, like you said, I don't like when things are dark for the sake of being dark, especially when sexual violence is being
Yes.
used, especially against women, is something that we always see to propel their character arcs. And honestly, I'm just kind of tired of that
Hmm.
reading it. I know a lot of older fantasy sometimes has that, but still, it gets tiring, especially when you compare it to how male characters are written in books, um, saviors and whatnot. So,
Yeah. No, agreed with all of that. Yeah. Ashley, did you want to add anything to that too?
I was just going to sort of say that it's interesting that because Masha, you said something that is the same way I feel, which is that I consider myself having a very high threshold for sort of trigger warnings and things like that. It also takes a lot for me to think, wow, that's too much. So I feel like sometimes I can maybe have a very different experience to a dark book of what someone else may do, because the threshold for me, I think, is a little bit higher than sort of general reader perhaps. But I also agree, and it's interesting though, isn't it, that we probably all three of us do have quite a high threshold for that, but that we still all agree that we don't like dark for the sake of being dark. I think that's quite interesting that we quite have that high threshold, but yet we wouldn't want it to be used for just the point being that it is dark. I think also something that you said, Masha, that was just interesting, because there's something I wanted to ask both of you. Sorry, it was going to go off on a slightly different tangent, but it just links to that, is when you said about, particularly with SA being used against a woman to propel another sort of storyline. I've just finished a book where that did happen. And I wanted to finish the book because I wanted to be able to, when I reviewed it, I wanted to be able to say that I've completed it. And so to make sure that my argument was fair. But I actually knew that this was going to happen before I read the book. So I couldn't tell whether my response to reading that scene was completely genuine, because I did know that it was going to happen. But it was that, and this isn't an old book. It was where an act of SA was, it happened against a female, and I don't think it was handled well at all. It felt completely unnecessary. And the only purpose of it that I could see was that it was used to further the character development for the male character that was also involved.
I hate that. Yeah.
It was, even though I knew that it was going to happen, I still was really angry about it, and I just couldn't. It's one of those things that I couldn't get past it. But as I say, I can't say that my reaction was maybe genuine, because I did already know about it going in. But I don't think that it was handled very well at all. And it didn't seem to be used for any purpose, as I say, other than to sort of get a heroic moment, which, yeah, made me really cross that it happened in a book. I just thought, oh, anyway. But I was just wondering if I could ask you both a question.
Yeah, of course.
Well, it kind of links to what we've been talking about, but something that I admire in both of you so much when you talk about books is how you talk about female characters, and how that's so important for you, because I know that both of you really appreciate when an author writes really strong female characters, particularly in fantasy books, and particularly when a male author writes really strong female characters. And so I just wanted to ask, sorry, it's a kind of a 2-point question, I hope you don't mind. I just wanted to ask if you have any sort of standout female characters that, maybe I've not heard of, or even if I have, I'd just love to know why they stand out to you as being really well written. And my second question that would go with that is, I guess, what makes a really strong female character for you is something that I've been thinking about a lot more recently after having read A Song of Ice and Fire. So I just wanted to know your thoughts on that, because I just think I can learn a lot from you, and I might get some recommendations. So I've brought my notebook so I can write some things down.
I love this question. Masha, go ahead. You first.
Oh, okay. I'm just thinking. So I think I've made a couple of videos about this, especially male authors writing female characters, because that is definitely something I think we see on the side of, like, at least in the fantasy sci-fi space, and especially with older fantasy. I think someone that at least I've only read the Bloodsworn trilogy, and I know Ashley has. I'm not sure if you have, Joanna.
I have not. Oh, wait, which one is that? Is that
Shadow of the Gods?
I've only read book 1. Yeah, go ahead.
What I like about John Gwynne is that I think he writes his women. Sometimes when I read, and this is also by female authors, right? When we sometimes read a female warrior, she's so petite, she's so small, and it is nice to sometimes see a depiction, especially from a male author, what would happen if you trained every day and held that standard, and to be depicted as like a true warrior with her own ideals, I think is what creates a really good female character. And then also, in the words of George R. R. Martin, though there are some things I don't always agree with in A Song of Ice and Fire, I love his female characters at the end of the day, is that he just writes them as human. And instead of thinking of it as this binary of, I'm going to write a male character and a female character, it is just human. Traits can be, doesn't matter what gender, right? And that's also something I liked to see in R.J. Barker's series, the Tide Child trilogy. I wouldn't say this is like the best characters of all time or cast of characters. Their depth definitely could have been a little bit more depth for me, but I loved his main female character because it was just someone strong. It wasn't you could have changed the name and it could have been a male or a female. It's not these like traits given just because. And I think at the end of the day, it's looking at it like through that lens, is that women can be strong. And I had a really interesting comment when I talked about that series of RJ Barker, was that someone said that they didn't, it's a matriarchy world. And someone said it was, they don't want to pick up the series anymore because a matriarchy is too far fetched. And I went, dude, you're reading fantasy, first of all. But a matriarchy is too far fetched. But I think that comment itself highlights the differences that we see how female and male characters are handled. I hope that kind of answered your question. I'm not sure if I went on a tangent there.
No, yeah, I love what you were saying about like the feeling of them being human in the world, and that just it really is a gift to be able to do that. I think that's actually there's a lot of challenging things to making somebody really feel human. I know that sounds weird because I think in our modern age, we're used to having these in-depth characters with an in-depth perspective and background. That's something we don't see as much in classical fantasy. I'm not going to say it's not there at all, but it is different. Nowadays, I think we have higher expectations for what we want in our fantasy stories. I think for me, I'm thinking of a couple of things, maybe 3 things that affect my experience with female characters. And so if I could draw my examples, I'm gonna draw from 3 different book examples, but one being A Song of Ice and Fire, because we do have so many female characters in that series. My favorite female character, no surprise to anybody who's been here a while, is Cersei Lannister. I cosplayed her in a video, which I made Ashley watch. But yeah, so the thing about Cersei that I really appreciate, without going into spoilers, is that she is depicted as the classic bitch character, and at the same time, like, spoiled, rich, all these things. But at the same time, when you start to get to know this character, you start to understand that how why she is the way she is and how much being a female in a patriarchy affects who she is. So that feminine aspect of that those aspects of her nature and her identity are shaped by being a woman and by being a woman in a patriarchy and in the family that she is in. And at the same time, as though all those things inform who she is, one thing that I appreciate about Martin's character work is that the human aspect, like Masha is talking about, because no character is cookie cutter for me in A Song of Ice and Fire. And you see this in the sense that, like, for example, she has 3 children, right? She has Joffrey, and I cannot remember the 2 other children and everything, but
Marcella.
thank you, yeah. The all our children are different from one another, just like all the Stark kids are different from one another. Arya and Sansa are nothing alike, and yet they're also I think their identities are also informed by being raised in a patriarchy. So it's this combination of something spontaneous and different about the character that just seems kind of intuitive to who they are, but also somewhat informed by the social system that they're in and the culture that they're in and their family upbringing. There's a combination of elements at play. And I feel that that's also at play to me. For me, I love the character of Esmenet in Baker's series in Second Apocalypse. I can't go into depth about that, obviously, without spoilers, but I do feel like he puts into account what it's like for this woman to have grown up in this system, in this world that is completely working against her. Not only in terms of being just a woman, but a woman who's in her 30s, you're considered over the hill if you're a woman in your 30s. And to be in that perspective and to have to make your living the way she has to make her living, the resourcefulness you have to have, there are just so many different compelling things about her character, and not just all the heavy stuff too, but even moments of banter and lightness and that she has with another character that I'm like, it just made her feel more real to me. And then the third female character that comes up for me, and I do have a video, by the way, about my top 15 favorite female characters of all time. But then another female character that comes up for me, and this is going to be a totally weird, different answer, and that's going to be Alara in Janny Wirtz's Wars of Light and Shadow. I adore that character, and, what I love about Alara is I felt like anytime she came on the page, and this is something I can't really put my finger on what it is that Janny's doing exactly. I'd probably have to go back and study it more in depth, but there's something in the tone of the story that changes. When she's on the page, I almost feel like I could smell her presence. It's the weirdest thing. I know that makes no sense, but I feel like there's just something that you can't put your finger on. There's like a soul to that character. There is a soul to that character. It comes through in like her communication or her beingness. And it feels like I feel the contrast of it because there's a lot of male characters in Wars of Light and Shadow. And honestly, I'm not the and I've said this before, I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of the male characters in Wars of Light and Shadow. I actually kinda get bored sometimes when we're just with the male characters, but then every time a female character comes on the page, those are usually my favorite times in the series, and specifically, like, I could say with Alara, every time she's on the page well, there is an exception, but for most of the time when she's on the page, I feel like, yeah, there's almost like a tonal shift, and there's a soul to the character. I don't know how she accomplishes that. Like I don't have answers to that, but those are just some of the ideas that come up for me when it comes to female characters. And obviously that doesn't make things exactly easy for the writer to say any of that.
Oh, thank you both so much. That I've just noticed is something that something I'm now really learning to appreciate is a really well written female character. And it seems to me that the more books I read, my opinion of what makes a really strong female character is sort of evolving over time. But something that I've also thought about is when I think about the books I was reading a few years ago, typically your female protagonist, main character, whoever it is, would always be, like you said, Masha, petite, really small, really pretty in a typical way, very young, maybe late teens, early 20s, and would typically always have really positive thoughts and a positive way of thinking. And if they made a mistake, they didn't mean it,
Mm-hmm.
So it really, I don't like, I feel like that can just put so many aspects of womanhood into just this box of what it is to be this ideal female character. And the more books I read, the more, like you say, like Cersei, typically awful character, but just so interesting. And I love reading about, strange women, interesting women, dark women, everything, bad women. I love it. I love the range.
That's so well said because you have Brienne as well in A Song of Ice and Fire, like just such an incredible range. If you look at, I know when I was talking about A Song of Ice and Fire with on the Bend the Knee podcast, which my friend Jimmy hosts, we talked about, I think it was in the fourth book, it was either in Feast for Crows. I think it was in Feast for Crows, where Matt, the co-host on that, he was talking about how if you look at the perspectives in Feast for Crows, I think there are more female characters' perspectives in that book than male ones. And they're all so different. So I think like I said, I think it's a range of like being able to look at different aspects. I mean, there's just so much. There's so much to be said about that. But I do love that it doesn't have to be this cookie cutter,
Yeah,
cute little princess, petite little princess, like you were saying, Ashley. Well said. Were you going to say something, Masha? I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
You guys got it all.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Great. I'll go ahead and go through here with some of the comments. Martin's characters are just so believable. We have all had an aunt or know someone just like Elena Tyrell, and it's the same across the board with every female character of all ages. They just feel real. Oh, I love that too. Age too. I think that's another thing I love that George R. R. Martin does is he depicts characters of different ages, which is so cool. Oh yeah, Vasya from The Bear and the Nightingale.
That's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. Susan, I'm so sorry. I don't know this character from Hewlett from Discworld. Is this in The Witches? Because I've only read a couple of guards, and Men at Arms. Yeah, wonderful. Let's see. Yeah, I love Sansa and Arya. reading Cersei's perspective versus merely hearing about her actions in previous books or only knowing her from the show is wild. She is such a different person than you would expect. Definitely speaks to Ashley's point here. Yeah. And then I love this. How can matriarchal societies be too far-fetched for fantasy? We have a number of matrilinear societies in reality. That's well said. I feel like I need to learn more about that. I've heard that before from a friend too, that historically we could find quite a bit with matriarchies. I do feel curious about this. I there is actually a matriarchy in the Tawny Man trilogy that gets introduced, and I was actually very impressed that this matriarchy didn't to me feel like just an inverse of a patriarchy, that there
Yes.
was just a lot of layers to it. The men are just passive to the women's whims. It wasn't like that at all. And there were certainly problems too with it. Like I thought it was well done in that way. The only other series I feel that I've read that has a matriarchy is oh, what is it called? The Queens of Innislear. No, is that right? I can't remember if that's what it's called. The Queens of Innislear? I think that's what it was, but there was some kind of matriarchal fantasy I read a while back, trilogy that was really good, but I didn't feel like it quite had the depth I wanted when it came to that. So that's pretty cool about the Tide Child trilogy to hear that. And I'll also say that I've heard great things about Attack on Titan since you said that you're reading that. Like I've watched the anime like the first couple of seasons and I loved it. And I don't know, all these years later, I really regret that I never continued. And I do want to go back sometime and watch it from the beginning and keep going. So it's cool to hear that you feel oh, and that you love it so much. And also, I have to say this too. You love Free Ren too. Have you continued? I
I
love
love
that
free run
series.
so much. I also think Ashley's gonna love free run. Um, yeah, I've been collecting like the manga because I want to go back and read it. And now that season 2 is done, I want to continue with the manga before because I can't wait for season 3. But free run is so good. I
Yeah.
love all the themes of like memory and time. I think it's so well done. I love that it's such a slower paced anime and it really kind of reflects those themes as well. Oh, it's so good.
It is so good. I love it too. I watched it on was it Crunchyroll?
Yeah.
One of those apps. I watched it with my husband last year and I adored it. At least as many as were out at the time. And I don't know if any more have come out since then, but
I
oh,
think there's a season 2 out now, and I think it's
oh,
10 episodes.
oh my gosh. I probably need to get on that because
Yes.
I just adored that series. Loved it. It's so beautiful. It's so well done. And assassin elf characters, heck yeah. So
So good. I was just talking to Dylan, and we were thinking this would make such a great open, like RPG video
oh
game,
yeah.
just because of the story wise. But Ashley, how are you finding Attack on Titan? Because I saw you finished a couple volumes recently.
Yes. So I've got two of the omnibus. So I've got volumes 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. So I just finished 4, 5, 6. Um, it's incredible. It's so good. I'm now looking for the next omnibus. I'm trying to find them secondhand
Yeah.
at the moment, and I've decided to take a little bit of break, back to Berserk for a little bit, and then I'm sort of going back and forth between. But it's so incredible. You were so right that I would love it, and I've started watching the anime as well. I think the anime works slightly differently, so the episodes don't quite line up with the publication of the manga in terms of the episodes. So I think when I was watching some of the episodes, I thought, oh, I've only just read that, and it's quite early on. So I think there is a slight. I think that's quite common, isn't it, with manga and anime, that they take different episodes and sort of the timelines are a little bit different. Is that right?
It can change through some of them, especially I think with something like Attack on Titan, it has a lot of like flashbacks,
Yes.
um, which, yeah, can kind of move around the timeline a little bit.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
But
love
I'm
it.
so glad you're loving it. That makes me
It's so
really
good.
happy.
I think it's such an interesting concept, and I think what has surprised me is well, what surprised me is that it surprised me. It's taken a a direction that I didn't see coming, and I really it's a lot deeper than I thought it would be. It's really surprised me. I'm really loving it. I'm loving it. So I'll have to keep you updated on my journey.
Absolutely.
I think the characters are great. Their relationships with each other, and just this I mean, this is coming from somebody who's reading Berserk, but the experience of what the characters are going through in Attack on Titan, absolutely terrifying. It's weirdly, it's scaring me more than Berserk, and I think it's because it almost, I mean, I'm saying this, sounds silly, but it doesn't seem too far-fetched, like this looming fear of, you know, something that could really impact all of society and how everything operates. It just doesn't seem that far-fetched to me. It seems, you know, I don't know, it's kind of oddly dystopian, but in a way that you think, no, I can really see how this would impact in the real world. And so I'm finding it quite terrifying in a way.
Yeah. Oh no. Wow. I'm going to have to get into it. I'm going to have to get into it.
Yes,
you guys have convinced me. Yes. That's so cool. Well, I know we are coming up on, well, we're just past the hour and a half point now. So I thought I'd just go ahead and lastly ask you to, do you have any big reading plans for the rest of the year, or anything you want to share about ideas maybe coming up on your channels? I should also go ahead and mention that something that also I think is interesting about both of your channels is that you both have a big presence on Instagram. And I know that talking with Masha, she started originally on TikTok, and that was how she met Spaced Out Reads, who's here in the chat. So thank you, Spaced Out Reads, for showing up today. And my goodness, so I think that's amazing that both of you have had such success on those platforms. I'm so bad about ever getting on Instagram, but I do love what you both have done there, and just done such excellent short form content, and more than thrilled and happy that you all are expanding into longer form content. So thought I'd go ahead and mention that. But ideas for the rest of the year, and you can mention either platform if you want to mention your short form content, or YouTube, BookTube, but any plans for the rest of the year, reading wise or project wise? And Ashley, we'll start with you.
I've got a few things. I think one of my big things is just to round off a few series that I've been working on. So I really want to complete the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rockio. I know Masha has read the series, and you liked the ending, didn't you, Masha?
I cried like twice.
Wow.
Okay, this is good, because I think Masha and I have had quite a similar experience with Sun Eater in terms of how we feel about it. So that really excites me. So I'd like to finish a couple of big series of things like A Song of Ice and Fire. I'd like to get up to date with it and read all the books that have been published so far. And I've got a few other buddy reads later in the year that I'm looking to sort of make some videos, have some more discussions. I will mention I've got a very exciting discussion coming up soon on the channel. Myself and Abby, who I do oh gosh, we call it Overdramatic Book Fanatics when we do our chats over on my channel. We're going to be chatting to Shauna Lawless, who wrote the Gale Song trilogy. She is incredible, so we're going to be chatting to her. I think we're going to be doing that in July, so that's coming soon. So I'm really looking forward to that and sharing that with everybody. Her Gale Song trilogy series is fantastic. And speaking of strong female characters, she is. If you like strong female characters and you like historical fiction, I would highly recommend her books and fantasy. And Joanna, well, to be honest, both of you are single-handedly controlling my TBR for the rest of the year. I have asked Joanna to recommend me 5 books to read. So I've got those books out on my TBR now. So I'm going to be reading those in the second half of the year. And hopefully we can have a little bit of a chat about those, Joanna. And to be honest, Masha, I think I might ask the same for you. I think I might ask you to recommend me 5 books as well.
That'd be fabulous. Awesome. I'd love to watch that too. Yay. I've heard wonderful things about Shauna Lawless, and I've interacted with her a little bit on a Discord before, and she is so intelligent. just a brilliant woman. So I imagine you're going to have a fantastic discussion with her. So yeah.
I'm really excited to chat with her and Abby. I think Abby saw her at a book festival last year and said that she was just this fountain of historical knowledge. I can't wait to pick her brain. But Joanna, Marsha, you've read Gal Song, haven't you?
Just the first two. I
Just the
haven't
first
finished
one.
this trilogy.
I would highly. I think you would enjoy it as well, Joanna. And if you do continue, Masha, I think you would. I think you would like it. In my opinion, the books just get better. It's a really strong series, and the fact that it's a debut as well, to me, just phenomenal. Her writing is. I can't pick fault with it. I can't pick fault with it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Excellent. Well, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to hear what you think of the books I chose for you. I hope you like them. I always say, like, I never get offended if people don't like the books I love. Like, I totally understand. And even if you DNF or whatever, totally just appreciate you giving them a shot. But I hope I hit the mark, and I can't wait to talk with you and find out.
I think
So,
you have, and I think Masha would really approve of the list as well.
I definitely want
yay!
to see that list.
I
Excellent.
will send it to you.
Excellent. All right. So, Masha, what about you?
I think I need to finish off some series this year. I am kind of a serial series starter. I have I've been reading the Dandelion Dynasty, and I have the last book left. And
Oh,
I've been
wow.
meaning to get to the last book since February. It is June. So, if that tells you anything about that, I need to get back into Malazan and Janny Wirtz. Baker was one of my top like reads for my TBR this year, so I'm really hoping I can fit that into the end of the year. And there's probably a couple more, though I can't really think off the top of my head. I have become a really big mood reader, and it is both a blessing and a curse because I do miss just reading through a series entirely. I think that's what works best for me personally. And as for content, I think it's been such a busy 2 months. I'm excited to come back, and I will be focusing more on YouTube. I have so many videos to catch up both on your channel, and I've missed Ashley's Jay Kristoff interview, and I saw you're playing The Witcher 3 I have to go watch. So I have some time to spend on my phone, which is perfect while being a little bit sick.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, I hope you get better, and I am so excited. I've been loving your content. It's
Yeah.
fabulous. It's fabulous. And Ashley, yes, I forgot to mention about The Witcher 3. I saw that. Which, by the way, I always talk about this. I always say because I read all the books that are published, except for maybe the one that came out last year or this year. I haven't read that one, but
Crosswords of Raven, something like
yeah.
that.
I haven't read that one. And I've had Vera on the channel before, so she could talk at length about The Witcher and understands it in a way I can't because of the language. But I had up and down feelings about the Witcher series. I thought the characters were very memorable. They still stick around in my head. But I read it at the same time as my husband was playing The Witcher 3. And I always laughed. I always joked around that he looked like he was having more fun playing The Witcher 3 than I had reading the books. But my goodness, that soundtrack is like one of the best soundtracks of all time.
Hard
And
to agree.
yeah, and it looks so fun. And Gwent, that game, the card game in it, I love that. I love all that. So
Yeah.
glad you're enjoying it.
It's so good. It's so much fun.
Is this
Yay.
your first time playing Witcher 3?
Yeah. This is my first time playing it, so that's why I thought I'd document a little bit of it. But I know that it's so well loved. I can't believe I'm only just getting around to it, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm loving it so far.
Yeah.
That's great. I just started playing it this year as well, so I'm
Mm.
almost done now. I'm working on the last 2 DLCs, at least the older ones that are released. But I'm excited to get back into it. It did take me a little bit to like understand the mechanics of it. I found it a little bit more confusing than some other video games, but I love Geralt. I
Yeah.
love playing as Geralt.
I
It's
agree.
just so fun.
Yeah.
He's great. He's a great character. Yeah, it's funny because I know Philip Chase, he has a video, a very old video on his channel of a student of his trying to teach him how to play a video game, which if you know Philip, he's so technology challenged, that's like the joke. And so he said that he couldn't even walk straight, like after like took him a long time to figure out even how to walk straight. I just got such a kick out of that. I did get a super chat, so I do want to highlight this and thank you so much for the 20 spot here. And what can I do to get you to read The Legacy of Bright Wash on your TBR? I have heard great things about this book. I do have a pretty packed TBR for the year, but maybe I don't know. It is a chunky book. If you all haven't heard of it, I know that's an indie book, but I've heard people say great things about it. I think specifically Taylor from Made Between the Pages loved the book. I remember seeing a praise for it on her channel. And I think Elliot Brooks talked about this book recently and loved it. So I know it's been making some rounds, but very generous, very, very generous of you. So thank you so much. Yeah. Um, so those are some plans for the year. I can say for myself, I'm going to be continuing Wars of Light and Shadow. That's like a big priority for me right now. I'm also reading a whole number of Guy Gavriel K books because there are a number I haven't read, and I'm joining a read along, Philip's read along for that. And let's see, I think there are some
That's
other things
exciting.
going on. Oh, yay, Guy Gavriel K. I love that book. I read it. I reread it this year. Just absolutely adored it.
So excited.
So yeah, Guy Gavriel K. Love his work. There are some books that I love more than others of his so far, but I'm convinced I need to read everything by him. And yeah, so those are some of the big ones. And then I did a whole entire huge science fiction TBR, which was my last video. So I need to get to work on reading more science fiction in general. So that's kind of the goal right now. But yeah, I just want to thank you both so much for joining me today. I love your thoughts on books, both of you. And I want to tell everyone who's watching this, please go to the description below. And if you have not subscribed to these channels, please subscribe. They are fabulous. They have fantastic thoughts. I love them both. So please make sure you go and subscribe. And I also just want to thank everybody for being here. So thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Bye.
Yeah.